Hello, my name is Catherine Basu, the owner of Fit Armadillo, and today I have a really special treat for you. I'm joined by Dr. Nicole Avena, who is the author of What to Eat When You Are Pregnant. What to Eat When You Are Pregnant is a trimester by trimester guide to what to eat as opposed to what to avoid while pregnant and nursing to support the mother's health and baby's development during each stage of pregnancy, and it also includes 50 recipes. So before we dive into our chat about the book and some of the tips that Nicole has for us today, I just want to read to you guys a little bit more about Nicole so you can appreciate how much of an honor it is for us to have her with us here today. So Dr. Nicole Avena is not only the author of What to Eat When You Are Pregnant, but also an assistant professor of pharmacology at Mount Sinai School of Medicine and an expert in the fields of nutrition, diet, and addiction. She received a PhD in neuroscience and psychology from Princeton University, followed by a postdoctoral fellowship in molecular biology at the Rockefeller University in New York City. Her research has been featured in Shape, Men's Health, Glamour, Details, Women's Health, Prevention, Oxygen, Fitness, and she regularly appears on television. So excited and honored to have Nicole here today. Welcome, Nicole. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Happy to be here and happy to have, be here to talk to you about pregnancy and, what kinds of foods women should try to eat. I think it's an important topic.
Awesome. Well, when I, first picked up the book, I actually brought it home with me when I was visiting family, and they're all now convinced that I'm pregnant. Which
yes.
I'm like, no. But now I do feel like, when I'm ready, I have, the guidebook for myself. But the reason why I was reading it at home is that my sister actually just had a baby in April, so even though we'll talk about this more, even though the title is What to Eat When You Are Pregnant, it does have, it's still going to be helpful for her now that she's nursing. And as a personal trainer, I tend to work with a lot of brides-to-be who then become, moms-to-be. And so now I have, I can help them with having a fit pregnancy, but I'm not a registered dietitian. So when it comes to giving them advice on what to eat, I didn't really have a lot of great resources for them, but this is now going to be my book. So I was so excited that it exists now, and would love to know though what inspired you to write the book.
Yeah, so I actually got inspired to write the book when I was pregnant with my first daughter. So I have two daughters. One is 7, and the other one is 3 months. And so when I was pregnant with my older daughter, I was excited and, had all these, emotions about, yay, I'm happy I'm going to be a mom, everything's going to be great. And as a scientist and someone who studies food and what to eat and, the effects that food can have on our body, I knew what I ate during pregnancy was very important. And I was really sort of taken aback because when I started to look in the literature and try to find information about what foods I should be eating and, how to eat well, there really wasn't anything out there. There were plenty of books and information about what foods to avoid,
Sure.
But there really wasn't anything that kind of laid it out in terms of, well, what food should you eat and why? And so I felt like this was really a missing thing that many women needed to have, and that's one of the main reasons why I decided to write the book. Also, I think it was important because, coming from the perspective of a mom and also someone who's, gone through pregnancies and also someone who's a scientist, I feel like I can kind of speak to this on multiple levels. And I try to do that throughout the book by addressing not only the science behind it, but also the sort of real life aspects of it. That's why I think the recipes that are included, I partnered with a really, really great registered dietitian, Georgie Fear, and she developed the recipes for the book. And they're really simple and easy to use recipes. And that was one of the things that Georgie and I talked about was that, we can't have, when you're pregnant or even if you have other little kids in the house, a lot of times people don't have time to go around collecting 65 different ingredients to make some special dish. It has to sometimes be sort of quick and easy, but healthy at the same time. And so we really tried to make the recipes, really user-friendly and easy, not something that is going to become an additional stressor in your life of, trying to cook some complicated dish.
Oh, sure. And I'm so glad you shared that because, and then it was inspired by you being pregnant with your daughter, because even though I read off your bio, you have all these great credentials, it's not, it's definitely, after reading it as well, not just written by someone who's a scientist who hasn't experienced, the hormonal effects of being pregnant and all that. You've actually, went through it yourself and, have some great tips in there as well for dealing with those aspects too.
Right. So the book is focused on obviously on like the nutritional aspects of pregnancy, but I also touch a fair amount on the psychological aspects because that all ties into how we eat. Because when you're pregnant, you can have it completely spelled out for you as to what food you should eat, but just like when you're not pregnant, there's all these other triggers and these things that happen that make you deviate from that healthy eating plan. So it's important to kind of acknowledge that and understand what's coming and know that when you're pregnant, sometimes those emotions can be magnified and, those cravings for foods can be magnified. And I try to offer some tips on how to deal with that and how to recognize it and ways to kind of cope with it if it happens.
Yeah, and I think you did a great job. So I'm excited for, my clients and people watching to check it out because I think they'll really see that real world and personable aspect, not just, I think what I found with my sister, especially when she was pregnant, was that there are a lot of books that she just felt really scared after she read them. But
yes.
I didn't feel that way. I mean, I'm not pregnant reading it, but but I didn't feel that way when I was reading What to Eat When You Are Pregnant, because I feel like it was really written with that sense of things and that piece of coming from that perspective.
I wanted that, and I felt the same way in that, you read all these books with all this great information about the, potential risks associated with a pregnancy of, all these awful things that are probably not going to happen to you, but it still just adds to this stress of being pregnant. And so I tried to make the book, although we do have to acknowledge, obviously some issues that come up and reasons why we need to eat carefully and, to kind of put it all into perspective. I did really want to have it be more geared toward the positive and focus on, let's take the information that we have, let's take the science and turn it into something good, not become, fear mongers or anything like that. So that was really one of the big goals I had for the book. And I'm glad to see that, you think I've accomplished that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, one thing I wanted to talk about, and I sort of said a little bit before, is that the title is What to Eat When You're Pregnant, but who would you say the book is for? Is it just for someone that just found out they're pregnant, or?
I think it's really for anybody, honestly, because the book it's about pregnancy and it's developed around, the 40 weeks of pregnancy because we focus on, taking the different nutrients that are important during the development of those 40 weeks of pregnancy and trying to capitalize on good food you can eat each week. So for instance, if a particular week eyes are developing, we make sure we include lots of foods that have extra beta carotene, things like that. And so while it's kind of a fun and different way to approach eating healthy, and it focuses on, what would be developing in a baby, there's no reason why someone who isn't pregnant can't eat this way. And all the tips in there are really, for just healthy eating. And it's something that I think anybody could pick up. But it's certainly geared toward women who are either thinking about becoming pregnant or who are pregnant themselves or who are, recently just had a baby, because there are lots of great tips and advice about, what to do after the baby's born in terms of if you're breastfeeding, what kinds of foods might you need to eat or what kind of foods might be good to make sure you can, still keep up your milk supply, but, still be eating well, but also maybe be losing a little bit of that extra weight you may have gained during the pregnancy. So I really think it's, generally a healthy eating guide, but it's geared toward women who are, either before, during, or after pregnancy.
Yeah, awesome. And I love that. I definitely found that from reading it as well. And I mean, I just wish, anyone that is thinking about becoming pregnant would pick it up, because I think you kind of see, and we can talk about this more, I think I have another good question for you on that, but just how important it is, just going into the pregnancy, having those healthy eating habits, and what you can actually do in a positive way by eating healthy. So we can talk about that more. But one thing I wanted to ask you too, I mean, we talk about all these myths that women hear, and what would be some of the top myths you would tell us about that are actually myths, and then maybe also some of the key facts that we should know about?
Yeah, so I think the biggest myth is, and I don't know if it's really a myth or it's just a saying that I think often gets taken too literally, is that when you're pregnant, you're eating for two.
Right.
Because people tend to think, oh, I'm pregnant, now I have to eat more food. And that's actually not the case. During the first trimester of pregnancy, you don't need any extra calories for a baby to sustain a pregnancy. And even on into the second and third trimesters, you really only need a few hundred extra calories a day. It's about the amount you'd get from an apple and a small cookie.
Right.
So we're not talking about extra meals here. We're talking about, small incremental increases in calorie intake. And so I think that's a big misnomer. And, often when women are pregnant, if they, suddenly feel overly hungry, they attribute it to, oh my goodness, this is the baby telling me I need to eat. I'm eating for two now. I have to eat more. And
Right.
I think that mindset can sometimes add to extra weight gain during pregnancy that isn't always a good thing to have. Now, bear in mind, obviously, if you're hungry when you're pregnant, you have to eat. But
Right.
I think it's really more about recognizing, if you are hungry and you feel these sort of sudden urges to eat and have cravings for food, making wise food choices, just like we need to do when we're not pregnant.
Right.
But it's just sometimes a little bit more difficult when you are pregnant because you have this sort of, social pressure in some ways of people saying, "Oh, you're pregnant, have another piece of cake," or "Oh, you're pregnant, why are you watching what you're eating? You
Right.
shouldn't be doing that." So, I think women should understand, and men too, we all need to always watch what we eat. It's
Right.
not that because you're pregnant, you fall into this protected class now where you can just eat whatever you want. It's just not a good idea because all those extra calories aren't really good for you or the baby. And it's better to think about the sources of where the food is coming from. You want to make sure you're giving the baby the best food and the best fuels that you can. And that's going to come from eating really healthy foods.
Sure. Awesome. And why would you say it is so important to be mindful of our food choices, particularly before, during, and after the pregnancy?
There's recent studies that have been done that suggest that what is consumed during a pregnancy can have long-term effects on the baby, on the offspring, in terms of brain development, brain changes, and also behavior later on. And so a lot of this has started to center around food. And there's been some studies that have been done in laboratory animals that show that what the animal eats during pregnancy can actually lead to changes in the offspring that make it want to become overweight or make it eat more as an adult, can change food preferences. And there's also some studies that even show that consuming a high sugar, high fat diet during pregnancy can lead to increased intake of drugs in the offspring. And so we're now just starting to really understand this. I mean, we've known for years and years that obviously if you do drugs during pregnancy, that the babies are born addicted to drugs. Like that's
Right.
clear. But now the research is starting to look at, well, what about all these processed foods and these, hyper palatable foods that are loaded with sugars and fats? Are they also having effects on the offspring in ways that are maybe similar to what we see with, drug effects that cross generations? So that's really where the research is now, and we're starting to, I think, learn more and more about the effects of food on a baby, on terms of what happens during pregnancy. So I think that is really, the key issue is that we know that what we eat during pregnancy can affect preference later on. Also, we know that there's just a lot of dangers associated with being overweight when you're pregnant.
Right.
And it can have long-term effects not only on the baby in terms of, having a larger baby that can pose complications during labor and delivery, but also, babies that are born overweight might be at risk or be in an environment now that's, producing a situation in which it's contributing to increased body weight later in life as well. So
Sure.
it's just important, I think, from the perspective of thinking about, the long-term effects of the offspring, why we want to consider eating healthy as sort of really the primary concern I think we should have during pregnancy.
Awesome. No, that's great. And I guess, one thing people, if they became pregnant and they were overweight or obese,
Yeah.
I think one thing, at least in the research that I've seen, and I haven't looked at it too much lately, but it's actually, not ideal. Obviously, we wouldn't want to plan it that way, but I think it's also kind of, empowering that even if that's how you're starting, if you're making good choices, not going on a diet, but, that you can really still have a positive impact on your children's choices. It doesn't have to be that it was a genetic thing that you're obese and your kids are going to be obese. So.
Exactly. And, most women do start a pregnancy overweight. That's the fact. So if you're starting a pregnancy and you're overweight, hey, that's fine. It is what it is for now. But that doesn't mean that, you should continue eating poorly just because now all of a sudden you're pregnant.
Right.
I think it's a good idea to start taking this as a, sign of, okay, well, here's a new beginning. And you can really make some changes and, it's not about losing weight. It's about eating healthy. And that's really the bottom line.
Yeah, and when I got the book, if you guys can see it, it's not very big. So I was like, how are there 50 recipes? But I love, I want to start cooking some of the recipes. I love how every week, like you did say this a little bit before, but there's a focus of a food that would be good, that would have good nutrients, and then some recipes that, would complement that to make it easy to eat that. So not just saying, get vitamin B6, but here's something that you could sheet
Right.
that would include
Yeah.
that.
I wanted to make sure that, it was very user friendly. So there are parts of the book that are kind of science geeky that goes into the details of like, why you need these specific vitamins and what they do. But then there's the part, most of the book is really just, okay, you need these particular vitamins or nutrients during the different phases of pregnancy. What foods have them? And here's some fun recipes that you can also make just to change it up. Because, it's one thing to have a grocery list of, okay, I need to eat these, 10 different foods this week, but
Right.
it's not really fun to, come home and then say, now what do I do with them? So we tried to
Right.
make a bunch of different recipes to make it so that it's a way to get these foods into your diet, but it's still not that onerous.
Yeah, and I do love too. I mean, because I see this with clients, even if they're not pregnant, writing them up nutrition plans. Some of them like want that structure of exactly what to do, and some
Right.
want just some general guidance. And I think that this book is great for either of those because you also have in the at the end I think of each chapter or each not chapter but each trimester chapter about like a sample meal plan for like a day during that trimester. So like even though you do have the recipes too, you have some guidelines for like how would this look if I'm looking at my other meals and not just that one recipe. So that I think is really helpful too.
Yeah, that's really I think key because I wanted to design it to be flexible because everybody's different. Everyone's kind of coming at this at their own pace and at their own level. And so I did want to provide some sort of structure to show like, okay, here's how you could create different menus and incorporate these different foods and really just kind of leave it up to the reader to then say, okay, I can use this as a template for eating healthy for the whole rest of the week and it'll really just make it I think easier for a lot of people who like to follow it that way.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much. I have a few other questions. I had some clients and fans write in. I'd love to ask your opinion on more specifics. So I think we have a great basic understanding of like why the book is important and what some key takeaways are. And I love all those recipes. That's awesome too. But I have Megan wrote in. She was wondering if you had to recommend one thing to eat during pregnancy, what would it be? Like if she could focus on one thing.
Yeah, well, there's so many things, and it's hard to say because pregnancy, evolves. I mean, you
Right.
start off like, in the first trimester with this, little teeny tiny embryo, and then you end up, with a full blown baby 9 months later. So there's a lot going on. So it's hard to pick just one thing. But if I had to pick one, I guess, particular type of food, I would say something that
Yeah.
contains a lot of folate.
Okay.
And so it's
sure.
really important to get folate or folic acid during pregnancy because that helps with brain development of the neural tube, which is what eventually becomes the brain and the spinal cord. And so getting folate, which is the version we get from foods, or taking a folic acid supplement, which is what we get in our prenatal vitamin, is really important. And so most women take prenatal vitamins and they contain folic acid, but it's also a fun and good idea to get it from natural sources like foods. So things like green leafy vegetables like spinach and kale, those are rich in folate. Also, spinach is good because it provides iron, vitamin A, potassium, and other types of things that are also important to the pregnancy. But,
Sure.
trying to focus on getting those green leafy vegetables in your diet is really, a good way to get a lot of folate.
Awesome. No, that's great. And I had Kirsten had a good question. She said, how the heck do I get any protein into me in the first trimester when the sight of any meat makes her vomit? She can't
Yes.
stand. Yeah, the thought of meats or veggies right now, but feels unsafe working out on just saltines and seltzer.
Right. No, that's totally true. And I can relate to that because I went through that when I was pregnant. Well, a couple of things. One is I've noticed personally, and I've had other people tell me this as well, if other people prepare the meat, sometimes it becomes less unappetizing.
Okay.
There's often something about if you prepare the meat, like if, let's just say you're making hamburgers at home, and I don't know why, for some reason, the sight and the smell of raw meat often is very unappealing, especially during pregnancy. So one option is to try to have your significant other cook the food and see if that helps. If that doesn't and you still have an aversion, there's lots of other things that have protein in them, like eggs, for instance, cooked hard-boiled eggs. Those are a great, relatively low odor, easy way to get, a lot of protein. So that's one good source. Tofu is also a good source. You can get 10 grams of protein from just 4 ounces of tofu.
Okay, yep.
And again, that's another thing that's kind of, pretty much like tasteless, odorless. And
Right.
so that's a good option if you're having, issues with meat and aversions to things like that. Things like peanut butter sandwich. I mean, that's really on the level of like if you need something bland, if you really have a lot of nausea, which happens sometimes during the first trimester, good old peanut butter and jelly sandwich might be the way to go because you can get a lot of protein from peanut butter. Just make sure that you're opting for a peanut butter that doesn't have a lot of added sugar
Sure.
because, you really want to get, actual peanut butter. If you can get it from the machine where you make your own peanut butter where it grinds up the peanuts, that's the best way to go. So you can ensure it's just peanuts and not extra sugar in there.
Right. Sure. Definitely. Awesome. And then I had one more. Jennifer asked, what do you eat if you're anemic during pregnancy and after? What would be some tips for that?
Yeah, so if you're anemic, and this is common during pregnancy, often women who have no anemia at all suddenly become anemic during pregnancy. So it's definitely something you have to talk to your obstetrician about because they'll want to do blood work. Or if you're feeling sluggish, you definitely want to talk to your obstetrician about that because they can do blood work to determine if, in fact, you are anemic. They might recommend that you take an iron supplement, which would be, an iron pill. And you often want to take a stool softener with that because it can wreak havoc on your digestive system. But if you want to just, if you want to prevent anemia or just maybe eat foods to kind of, boost it anyway in terms of, your iron levels in food, you can simply just eat foods that have iron in them. So things that are, there's two types of iron. So there's hemi-iron and non-hemi iron. So hemi-iron is found in things like animals. And so you want to get things like, beef and lamb and turkey, and even some fish has that source of iron in it. And then the non-hemi iron is coming from, plant-based sources. And so this would be found in things like grains and cereals. Most of our cereals have been fortified with iron. So that means that the food companies, it's like been mandated for a while now that iron be kind of put into them, as an additional thing. So if you, want to just check your cereal and see if it says iron fortified or check the nutrition label, see if it has iron added, that's a good thing to do too. But plants like nuts, or excuse me, plant-based sources of iron like spinach, for instance, and also nuts. Nuts are a really good way to get iron.
Awesome. Great. Well, I appreciate you answering all those questions too. And like I said, I really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us today. Anything else that you wanted to mention about the book or any other tips that might be useful for those women watching?
Yeah, I think it's a great book. Like I said, the book, it's near and dear to me because I wrote it, after an experience I went through with, being pregnant. So I think that's one of the things that, makes it really fun and important to me because it's something that I feel like, I wish I had when I was pregnant. So I hope it can help other women who, could benefit from this information. But if you want to get the book, it's available wherever books are sold. It's available in, Barnes and Nobles and Amazon.com. And you can also get it through my website, which is drnicoleavena.com.
Okay, great. And then, I was going to say, too, any good ways for them to get in touch with you would be going to the website.
Yeah, you can go to the website, and then there's also links on the website to my Facebook and Twitter handles, too. I often post different articles about things related to, pregnancy and nutrition, and even just diet in general, because our lab studies how food affects the brain. And so if you're interested in kind of keeping up with any of that, you can, follow along.
Very cool. Anything exciting that's, new and exciting? I know you just had the book come out, but with you or your research that would be useful for them to know, or just kind of keep following you for more tips?
Yeah, this, I've kind of been laying low the past couple months because I just had a baby, so my own baby, another one. So, but yeah, there's always exciting stuff going on over the next couple of months. And so definitely stay in touch about different events and different, research experiments that are going on. More and more is coming out each week, so.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much, Nicole, for hanging out with us today, and especially, being a new mom and taking the time. Yeah. So we really appreciate it. And those of you, that listen, definitely go check out the book. I'll have on the website, fitarmadillo.com, I'll have the video. I'll also link stuff on YouTube. But if you guys go back to the website, you'll see the link to Nicole's website, link to the book, and you can kind of follow along and see as new things develop. But thanks so much for watching, and hope to catch you guys next time. Thanks, Nicole. Bye. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this interview today. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you did, please make sure you share it so your friends can get all these great tips. And be sure to thank Dr. Avena for her time. You could send her a tweet or leave her a note on her Facebook page to do that. To keep up with Dr. Nicole Avena, visit www.drnicoleavena.com. Her book, What to Eat When You Are Pregnant, can be found on her site or in your local bookstore. And of course, for more fitness and healthy lifestyle tips you can enjoy at your place and your pace, be sure to visit the full website, fitarmadillo.com. Hope you have a great rest of the day, awesome workouts, and to see you soon. Bye!